remember when you were in grade 1 and your teacher told you that you were special and that you're different from everyone else? Well, genetically speaking, that's true. All individuals within a population are unique, at least on some level. Even identical twins share some changes in the DNA between each other. And so, if all of us are different from each other, that means all of us have different characteristics and adaptations that may potentially give us an advantage over other individuals of the same species or over other individuals of a separate species. And so variation is incredibly important in this, that you have to remember that we're all different and conditions may favor some adaptations right now, but those necessarily won't be the same adaptations that will be favored next season, a century from now, 1,000 years from now. It's important to remember that these variations that exist within our species and within any species are variations that have an origin in the DNA. They have different sequences of DNA which result in different proteins being made, which result in a different adaptation being manifested. And so the way that this characteristic or adaptation remains within a population is only through DNA replication and that DNA being passed on to subsequent generations. So for example, if you have an adaptation for black hair and everyone else has an adaptation for red hair, the black hair gene will disappear if you don't mate. If you don't have children, there's no way that that can be passed on. And so the importance here is that not only is there variation within a species, but that it's heritable, meaning that you can pass that information on to your offspring. And what this means is that it's really important to survive and to reach reproductive age so that you can have offspring with your characteristics. Now, if you're unfortunate enough to have an adaptation that doesn't help your survival or would actually hurt your survival chances, then that means that you will have less of a chance of passing on your offspring or those characteristics to your offspring. If you step back and take a look at the bigger picture of things, what this means is that over a long period of time, populations can gradually change. So let's say, for example, in the dog population, there's black-haired dogs, red-haired dogs, brown-haired dogs, blonde-haired dogs, gray-haired dogs. But let's say amongst dogs, all of a sudden there's a new predator that arrives, and it only likes to eat dogs that have the red hair color. So what that means is that over time, fewer and fewer red-haired dogs are going to reach reproductive maturity. Fewer of them are going to have children. And so what that means is over time, the frequency of the red-haired gene diminishes. And so we see gradual change. And in essence, if you take all of those previous observations and logic points together, that is the theory of natural selection. I want to finish our discussion of evolution just mentioning a few extra points, which you probably picked up on during the discussion, but I just want to make sure that that I highlight these points. One, that there is no sort of directionality to evolution in the sense that one form of organism is favored over another, that it's entirely based on the environment. So if conditions favor one adaptation right now, that could change. And so what this means is that humans are no more highly evolved than a bacteria. In fact, our DNA has its origins in the very same initial first living thing. that over time that DNA has been exposed to environmental pressures in different ways that have shaped those organisms. So for example, we are very good at what we are designed to do, but we couldn't do the types of things that bacteria do because we weren't exposed to those environments, and we've taken different paths in evolution. My second final point is that Darwin didn't know about classical or molecular genetics, but the explanation of natural selection is clearly enhanced by your understanding of DNA. That when you just look at it in its most basic version, even without me identifying about DNA or genetics, that first explanation that I gave you, you were probably already thinking of it anyways. And so I just want you to keep that in mind, that Darwin was just one figure in the theory of evolution, and that his knowledge and understanding of the world is a lot different than ours. And our understanding at this current time can clearly enhance our understanding of evolution and how it works. But I just want to get through to you as well that Darwin wasn't proposing the theory of evolution. Scientists prior to Darwin had already been establishing that organisms change through time. What Darwin does is he gives us a mechanism that helps us explain how organisms change through time. In the next lesson, we're going to start looking at evidence for Darwin's theory of natural selection. I just want to finish off with one explanation that I'll elaborate on later, which is that there's two different types of evolution: small-scale evolution and large-scale evolution. Small-scale evolution is talking about changes in gene frequency within a population. So most of the examples that I've given you so far are small-scale evolution, which means over time we have fewer red dogs, or over time we have more giraffes with longer necks. Large-scale evolution is the type of evolution where we talk about how does one species transform into multiple other species over many, many generations, which would clearly take a longer amount of time. Darwin never explained anything about, well, not that he didn't explain anything, but his central focus was clearly on small-scale evolution. How do populations change over long periods of time? There are scientific investigations that are currently ongoing in large-scale evolution. So people are trying to understand how do species change into other species. And we will definitely look at that, but that's going to be later on in the unit. So for the foreseeable future, we're probably going to focus on how do populations change over time. And once we've established how do populations change over time, then we'll start to look at how do populations changing over time, how does that result in the creation of new species, which is something different called speciation, or as I've mentioned before, large-scale evolution. Alright, I hope that you have enjoyed the lecture, and I will give you some instructions via Word document that will tell you what you're supposed to do with this as you're writing it at the end of it. And so hopefully you took a look at that before you started listening to this. Have a good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.